Hello everyone and welcome to Making Your Quantum Leap. I am delighted that you're joining me here today for this training, the first in our 10x Growth Accelerator series. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. I really do appreciate it. And I am really excited to deliver this training, which, like all of our 10x Growth Accelerators, is really there to complement everything else that you're doing. It's there to deepen the most important insights, to accelerate progress, and to really amplify your results. And that's the big piece of today's session, our key theme. It's all about amplification and finding points of leverage. You know, have you ever had that sense of there's just a ton of headroom that you could expand into, the potential that you could find? You know, of course you have. That's why you're here. That's why you're working on these things. And that's absolutely perfect, because it is astonishing what you can achieve in 12 months. But here's the key question I want to ask you. Are your goals big enough? Are your goals deep enough, stretched enough? Are your goals exponential enough? And there's an immediate action for you to take right away, just into your next journaling session. Maybe give yourself that question. Are my goals exponential enough? Now, there are three important reasons to ask this question of ourselves. And the first is that time is short. I mean, honestly, who's got the time and energy just to inch along? This isn't to be confused, though, with taking shortcuts or maybe feeling or being very rushed. This is about leverage. It's about bang for buck, getting great return on the investment of my time, and thinking like, what's the magic 20% that gives me 80% of my results, and how can I dial that up? Second key reason we want to ask this question is that spending time and expending effort is basically inevitable. And to an extent, achievement is inevitable for you. You will achieve something in the days, weeks, and months to come. But let me tell you, success, that's optional. So we need to set targets, we need to stay on the path, and we need to work on what matters most. And here's the third reason we want to ask these questions of ourselves. The brain, it needs challenge and stretch. It needs just the right level of stimulation to be really firing on all cylinders. And I'll tell you that goals that don't excite don't get done. Maybe you want to jot that down somewhere. Goals that don't excite just don't get done. So there we've got two precious resources, time and attention, that need to be carefully directed, and one high performance principle. The brain needs that challenge and stretch. It needs goals that excite it, otherwise they just don't happen. And we want to bring all of that into today's session to help us make our quantum leap. Now, thinking in terms of a quantum leap is really important because, as we've talked about, time is short. Success is optional, so we want to be very careful about where we place our time. But also because the journey of success is a series of step changes. It's not just a steady sequence. It's these moments of real acceleration, the catalyst of which is a pivotal moment. And in those pivotal moments, we can choose to embrace them or to shrink from them. And that choice, that decision, and the actions that follow largely define the success that we enjoy or that we keep out of our lives. Now, these moments, these pivotal moments in life and career, they need a quantum leap because these moments require, first of all, reinvention, a little change, a little shift in the being, and with it, an elevation in the thinking, the behaviors, the actions, and the habits that this new me is going to step into. But our moments of these pivotal changes, these transformations, these quantum leaps, in particular require us to go exponential in our goal setting, to set goals at a whole new level and as this different person. And it is fantastic when we do, because it accelerates us in time and everything shifts with it. It's like a sports car that's maybe struggling in the current gear, and then you're hitting the accelerator as much as you can. It's kind of whining and complaining, and then you make a shift. And now you're free flowing in an upper gear. Now, without thinking at the quantum leap level, we miss out on opportunities. We forego potential. We leave money and time and energy and results on the table. We limit ourselves. And when I think of my own history, I can think of all sorts of examples, and I'm sure you can too, where whether for me it was music or sport or my previous careers, just having that sort of frustration at edging along, and it suddenly tips over and I just make a decision to create a radical change and become hell-bent on achieving whatever is my project on an exponential scale. That's what we're working with today. Now, the mistake that most people make is they just don't think about going double, triple, 10x on their goals. And the primary reason is a combination of self-limiting belief and fear. I could never do that. I wouldn't know how to do that. I couldn't handle it at that level. It would be hard. It would be a struggle, and so on. And in time, we'll definitely deal with those points of internal resistance as you step through TSP Academy. But for now, let's just make a commitment to one another right here, right now, to put those fears and those limiting beliefs to one side so we can really work. Now, others among us might be thinking, well, okay, I can put all that to one side, but I just don't have the time to go 10x. Well, that's all the more reason to think and act big. Remember, when we go 10x, it's not 10x the work, it's 10x the result. There might be slightly more work. We might need to get way cleverer, way more focus in how we do that work, but it's not 10x the work, it's not 10x the time, it's 10x the result. And I just want to share with you the thought, hey, I could do that right now. There's a great story from the amazing Steve Chandler in his book. I have it right here. It's called Right Now. It's a book that I probably gift more than any other to my clients, my friends, my families, my colleagues. And there's a great story in there from Steve where he's at a seminar and he comes out where he's been invited to create this 5-year plan. And he has his 5-year plan and he's proud as punch. And he shows it to his colleague and the guy who later becomes his coach, Steve Hardison, the ultimate coach. And he shows Steve his plan and he's very proud about it. Year 1, I'll do this. Year 2, I'll do this. Year 3, and he has this whole plan to become a professional speaker. And as he's been through it, Steve looks at him and says, well, it's a great plan. Just one question. Why 5 years? And Steve says, well, what do you mean? That was the seminar. We need to create a 5-year plan. And the other Steve says to him, you could do that right now. And he very quickly comes to learn that you can apply the thought of, I could do that right now, to almost everything in life, to get into action and make things happen. And it's been one of my personal rules, one of my golden rules that I have with me all the time. Anytime I'm thinking about stepping up or moving forward, creating goals where I'm thinking, well, I'll do this, all these things first, and I'll push this off into my future. In year 2, I'll do this. Maybe in a couple of years, I'll do that. I want to say to myself, hey, I could do that right now and get into action. So let's 10x the result because the work stays the same. And let's really have that thought that I could do that right now. And if there's any remaining sense that this isn't worth the time or the effort, just try this. I want you to cast yourself 5 years into the future. Okay? 5 years into the future, you're 5 years older, your other half is 5 years older, everyone around you is 5 years older, everything's moved on. And now just imagine describing these last 5 years in terms of the quantum leaps that you've made, the radical transformations that you've been through. I mean, how energizing is that? And how useful is it to see how quantum leaps contribute to an amazing and impactful life? Still feel like it's a waste of time? Okay, so let's get into the details. Okay, so welcome back. And what we're going to do now is we're going to share 3 philosophies for success that you can just put in your toolkit to apply to your quantum leap and any time that you're setting goals and looking to move things forward. And then what we'll do is we'll step through the model that we want to share that will really help to shape your quantum leap and absolutely give some concrete actions and some key strategies that you can implement. So let's start with our 3 philosophies for success. And the first is just to make double, triple, and 10x thinking a habit. Perhaps you want to jot that down. Give yourself a little challenge for the week to come to just make it my habit to think double, triple, 10x all the time. And when you step into this, I want you just to remind yourself that it's the same amount of work. As we've talked about, it's 10x the result, not 10x the time. And I invite you just to keep it light. Don't make it a big thing. Just dare yourself to think a little bit bigger and just experiment. Thought experiment that you can play anytime to double, triple, or 10x what I was currently looking at. See what happens. Second philosophy for success here is to become very practiced at your new level. When you double, triple, 10x your goals, you're now thinking and working at a new level. So we want to become practiced at that in our thoughts, in our emotions, and in our levels of operation. So I want to get good at thinking at the level of 10x. I want to get emotionally connected with goals at my 10x level. And I want to start thinking operationally, really seeing this in the day-to-day, the weeks and the months, and how my days will change when I'm at this level. So that's philosophy number 2, become practiced at this new level. And our third philosophy for success is to spend as much time and focus eradicating contradictions as you do adding new stuff. There's going to be time-consuming, low-level behaviors that are pulling you down and signaling to stay where you are or even retreat. And when we're looking at a new project, we all love to think about adding new things. It's where the brain goes. What I want you to do here is to focus on subtracting what isn't working and doesn't belong, just as much as you think about what to add. So spend as much time and focus eradicating contradictions as you do thinking about what I need to add to step up to this new 10x level. So with those 3 philosophies for success in mind, let's think about a model here that we can really lean on to architect our quantum leap. And the model I want to present to you is in 4 parts. We're going to think 10x, we're going to eliminate contradictions, we're going to make some major moves, and we're going to acclimatise. This is simple, powerful, profound, and something that you can use again and again. And we're also looking for something here that really breaks things down, makes it entirely consumable, relevant, doable. So that'll be a real focus today. And this is important because, we've all heard the adage, we always overestimate what we can do in a year. And I absolutely agree. But not so much when we look at 12 months or 52 weeks. Because the problem isn't the time, it's the label of a year. So we really want to break things down, because when we do, we're far more accurate in our forecasts and plans, and we're far more likely to succeed. So let's really have the focus today about breaking things down and just stepping through the process. So what we're going to do is we're going to step through each part of our model today. We're going to pick out the highlights. We'll step through some of the details of implementation with some real practical steps and some actionable strategies. Plus, we're going to suggest a few benchmark thoughts that you can use just to confirm that you're on track. And at this point, you might like to download the accompanying workbook. You'll find that here in your portal. So go grab that now and we can work through it together. And I'll see you when we come back. Okay, so step 1 of our process for quantum leaping is to double, triple, and 10x your goals. Have the thought when you step into this part of the process that doubling, tripling, 10x is actually easier than staying with the goals that you had or thinking incrementally, because even just the act of doubling really changes up the thinking. If you've got a goal that's, let's say, I want to make 5K, and you turn that into 10K, 15K, 50K, well, I'm going to have to think a little differently, and it really expands the mind. So have that thought when you step into this part of the process. And what we want here is that complete shift. It's like the sports car that we talked about. It's no good revving the engine harder and harder. It's stuck at this gear. We want to completely shift into the next gear. Second key reason we want to have this step of doubling, tripling, and 10x in our goals is it's highly motivating. There's a lot of challenge and stretch there that really puts the brain in its performance sweet spot. We do need to park those fears, those limiting beliefs, those thoughts about, I wouldn't know how to do this. So let's just put those to one side. But when I allow myself to double, triple, 10x my thinking, my brain gets super excited about the prospect of how I'm going to figure this out, how I'm going to make this work. And the third key benefit to this part of the process, doubling, tripling, 10x in our thinking, is the emotional commitment that we build. There's a real attachment there to a goal that's pretty big. So let's think now a bit about practical steps and actionable strategies that you can use. And what I want to give you here is that sense of, first of all, parking the fears and the how to. Okay, when you go 10x, when you start to think about big goals, immediately the mind might come up with some fearful thoughts. It might come up with some limiting ideas. It might think, oh, I wouldn't know how to do that. I want you just to put those to one side. We're not saying they're not important. We're going to work on those in other parts of the academy. But for right now, let's just put those to one side. Give yourself permission to let go of those fears, let go of the how to. You're going to figure this out, no problem, down the line. But for now, let's just let go of those so I can play with this idea of going 10x. And the second thing I'd like you to do is I'd like you to be future you. Not the you of right now, but the you of 6 months, a year in the future. Let's say whatever your goal time frame is, cast yourself into the future. Be that person right now. And this is a great strategy to couple with any goal setting process, but especially when you're doubling, tripling, and 10x in your goals. This is why we have it as a core part of the process, your future self. And I'd love you just to go check out your future self. It's in the fundamentals of the self-mastery segment of the TSP Academy, Series 1. Go check that out after this. But for now, just to help you set your 10x goals, set the goals from future you. Set the goals that future you would have. Spend a bit of time getting to know future you. What does that person value? What do they spend their time on? Where's their focus? What level are they operating at? And set your goals as that person. Now, here's the key what we want in this part of the process. I want you to ask yourself, what does 10x look like? What does 10x look like with my goals? And I want you to spend a little bit of time on this. I want you to think about, first of all, the metrics, but also what your day is going to be like, your month's going to be like, you're going to be like if you go 10x on the thinking. You're going to need to change up. You're going to need to make a shift. So spend time with this. Ask yourself these questions. What does 10x look like? And use the workbook to help you with that. Now, the benchmark here, just to let us know that we're on the right track, is that you might notice that things get easier and clearer when you allow 10x. So that's your benchmark. If you find yourself with some resistance there, okay, that's some of the fears and some of the how-tos. I want to let those go. But as you start to relax and get into the idea of 10x, it gets easier and clearer because your mind will expand. You want to run with this, and in that moment, I want you to have your journal to hand. I want you to have your favorite notebook. I want you to have the ability to sketch out what's coming to mind, because that's going to be inspirational, great stuff that you want to act on. So that's the first step in our process to double, triple, 10x your goals, and really ask yourself that question: what does 10x look like? Step 2 in our process is to eliminate contradictions. There's a great quote from Robert Brault: we're kept from our goal, not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal. Now, you're ready in for a radical shift here. So I want to ask you, what are the contradictions in your life, in your world, in your environment right now to that shift? Now, this is key, and we've talked about it already. We've talked about the importance of removing as much as we want to add, getting rid of what's not working so we can clear it down. Think of it like a big block of marble. You're a sculptor and you're going to chip away until what you're left with is absolute perfect work of art. So you're ready in for this radical shift. What are the contradictions to that? And what are some of the lesser goals? This is also important because the brain is really challenged with distraction. Brain is an attention economy. It's very easily distracted. It loves what's novel, what's new. It's paying attention to any kind of threats that might be out there. So constantly looking at the environment. So distractions are a problem. And when we couple that with those ideas of some of these things that are going to be negative signals for what I am becoming, what I'm stepping into, I really want to pay attention to eliminating contradictions and distractions. So let's do all this from the place of future you and your 10x goals. This is prospection that we're talking about here, possible futures, because your view of the future affects what you do in the present. So really come from future you, really be in the future and think, okay, what are the contradictions to that? What do I need to let go of? What are some of the lesser goals that we just need to get rid of? So some of the practical steps and key strategies that you want to use here is, first of all, to identify any misuses of your time. Be future you. Think at the 10x level. What's a misuse of your time? We want to redirect those energies. And as always, use your workbook to really sketch some of these things out. Second thing we want to do is identify and remove those lesser goals. You would have stepped up. Some of the goals that you had previously, they're just not as important right now. They're just not worth your attention. So they either need to be parked, maybe permanently, or they need to be delegated out. So really just identify and take action to get rid of your lesser goals. Third thing I want you to do is think about some of the people and some of the meetings that are getting your attention right now. They are going to be beneath your level. And it maybe sounds a little bit high and mighty, but we're always moving on. Some people will come with us, some will not. And we need to think, okay, at the 10x level, where I'm going, where I'm the person I'm becoming, there are some people who have my time and attention right now who perhaps don't get so much of me or need to talk to somebody else. There are meetings that I just shouldn't be in. There's other meetings I should be in. So let's really think about people and meetings and where we need to make shifts, where we need to make changes. And then finally, I'd like you to think about any other contradictions that you can think of. For example, in your environment setup, maybe some of the habits and routines that you partake in on a daily, weekly basis, maybe some of the decisions that you make, maybe some of the levels of investment that you typically make. What are some of the other contradictions that are out there that you need to let go of? Now, all of this, misuses of time, lesser goals, people, meetings, contradictions, this will give you a mini game plan. This will give you a set of actions that you can commit to clear down the noise so you can really get to the key signals. And the benchmark here may be the thought that it's a little bit uncomfortable initially to really contemplate removing some of these things because we build up an attachment. But what you'll notice is the second thought and the second feeling is that you'll be a little bit lighter. There'll be more air, there'll be more space. So use that as your benchmark to let you know you're on the path. Now, at this step of the process, when you're thinking about your major moves, a really good benchmark is really just to enjoy the levels of competency and confidence that you'll be building just from having a plan that's at both the big picture and the finer detail levels. You've got your big major moves, but you've also got your golden rules as guiding principles in the moment, and you're in action with this practice in public idea. So there's your benchmark, and really enjoy the competency and confidence that comes off the back of having all of those elements working in collaboration. Okay, final step of our process is acclimatization. This final piece is crucial. I want to tell you that we set a limit for the level of success with which we're comfortable. Think of it now, there are limits that we have non-consciously set, and beyond that, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. Now, when we 10x our goals, there's a very good chance that we're going to completely bust that limit. So a key step is that we want to acclimatize to these new limits. Otherwise, we're going to be continually self-sabotaging. So we want to become comfortable with these goals and with the you who owns them. And we want to manage the limiting thoughts that may arise, the inner critic, the negative internal narratives that arise when we start to smash through those non-consciously set upper limits of success. Now, all of this is a huge topic. It's a wonderful thing. It's really going to move you forward. It's going to be the topic of your next 10x Growth Accelerator. It's called the Success Ceiling Breakthrough Training. I want you to watch that straight after this. But for now, I'd like you, first of all, to create a regular practice of acclimatization. I want you to spend time with your 10x goals, reflecting on them, living into them, and becoming used to the you who has these kinds of goals. Bring it into your journaling time, when you're meditating, tell other people about it. Just create a practice for this. And in your workbook, you'll see a little challenge, a question there that says, what would a regular practice look like? Second thing I'd like you to do at this stage of the process is to have and execute a strategy that handles those limiting thoughts and negative narratives that might come up. Have a very simple if-then practice that you'll follow. If I start to think these things, then I will do this. For example, I might refocus on my goals. I might quieten the voice by just simply knowing it's looking to keep me down at this lower level, keep me inside this sort of comfort zone. One of my favorites is just to get them down on paper. If I have this worrying thought, then just write it down on a piece of paper. Just have that rule. Don't think about it. Don't give it a lot of time and attention. Just have your rule that says, I get these down on paper. Because when we do that, they kind of lose their power. You ever notice that when you grab a limiting belief and you jot it down on a piece of paper and it's just like, doesn't have anything like as much hold over you. And then when you've got it on paper, you can really go to work on it. You can challenge it. How do I know this is true? And so what if it is true? What would happen if I acted in spite of this fear? So create a regular practice for acclimatization and have this strategy for handling the limiting thoughts that come up, and just follow your if-then practice. And the benchmark here that might be useful just to see if you're tracking and on time and on schedule is that every day you'll find yourself just settling just a little bit deeper into these new goals of yours. So there is a simple but powerful 4-step process that you can step into to make your quantum leap. You're going to amplify your goals. You're going to eradicate the contradictions, both internal and external. You're going to make your major moves, live by your golden rules, practice in public, and you're going to spend time acclimatizing to your new level of operation. And if you've not done so already, I'd love you to download the attached workbook and put 20 minutes on your calendar in the next day or so that you can really start playing with these ideas, especially ideas 1, 2, and 3, steps 1, 2, and 3. Think about amplifying your goals and what those look like. Think about some of the contradictions that you can start removing, and think about some of the major moves that you'd love to step into. And bring all of this, incorporate it into a practice of acclimatization, and bring that element into your existing routines. You'll have a daily journaling, meditation, reflection time that you have. There are times in the week where you spend just a little bit of time thinking. Incorporate your practice of acclimatization for this new 10x level into those existing routines. Okay, so in summary today, time is short. Achievement is inevitable, success is optional. So let's not waste time and effort with incremental change. Instead, let's be laser focused on making radical shifts, because at the pivotal moments of life and work, transformation is what's called for. I'd love you to download the workbook. Do that now. That's your next action. Put some time aside on the calendar within the next 24 hours to spend some time with this and weave it into your routines and rituals. And before you go, just take a moment to consider, what's your key insight from today's session? What's the most important piece of learning that's going to really propel you forward? I'd like you also just to think of which of your goals and projects are you most excited to start applying our quantum leap principles to? What can you not wait to get working on? And finally, what commitment are you making to yourself right here, right now? And what's your very next action to start creating momentum from today's training? I hope you found today's insights useful and that they'll serve you well. As always, we'd love to hear about your successes using the ideas and material in today's training session. I'm looking forward to seeing you in another session very soon. Bye for now.